I never believed in ghosts until that night. A night so terrifying that even now, I get chills just thinking about it. It started with a sound soft deliberate, coming from a place no living person could be. What I saw next made my blood run cold. And from that moment, I knew something was in that house. Something that wasn't human. People say spirits can't hurt you, but they've never met what I did. And if you think this is just another ghost story, I dare you to keep listening. If you love true horror and spine-chilling stories that keep you awake at night, make sure to subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Story number 1. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is one of the most famous ghost stories in England. It is about the ghost of a woman who is said to haunt Raynham Hall, a grand old house in Norfolk. The story goes back hundreds of years, and many people believe they have seen her ghost. The most famous proof of her existence is a photograph, taken in 1936, which shows a misty figure coming down the stairs. Some say it is real, while others think it was faked. But the legend of the Brown Lady has fascinated people for a long time. The ghost is believed to be Lady Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Robert Walpole, who was Britain's first Prime Minister. She lived in the 18th century and had a tragic life. She married a man named Charles Townshend, who was known to be very strict and cruel. According to the story, Townshend locked Dorothy in a room in Raynham Hall after he found out she was having an affair. She was kept there for many years, until she died, possibly from smallpox or from sadness. After her death, people began seeing her ghost wandering the halls of the house, dressed in a brown dress, which is why she is called the Brown Lady. The first recorded sighting of the ghost was in 1835. A man named Colonel Loftus and another guest at the house saw a woman in an old-fashioned brown dress walking through the halls. Her face was pale, and her eyes were dark and empty. When they tried to approach her, she disappeared. Colonel Loftus was so shocked that he told everyone about it, and soon the story spread. A few years later, in 1836, Captain Frederick Murray, a famous writer and friend of Charles Dickens, stayed at Raynham Hall. He wanted to see the ghost for himself. One night, he and two friends saw the Brown Lady on the stairs. She smiled at them in a terrifying way before vanishing. Murray was so scared that he fired a gun at her, but the bullet passed right through where she had been standing. The most famous evidence of the Brown Lady is the photograph taken in 1936. Two photographers, Captain Hubert Provand and his assistant Indra Shira, were taking pictures of the grand staircase for a magazine. Suddenly, Shira saw a misty figure coming down the stairs. Provand quickly took the photo, and when they developed it, they saw the clear image of a ghostly woman in a long dress. The photograph was published in a magazine called Country Life, and many people believed it was real. However, some experts later said it could have been faked by smearing grease on the camera lens or using double exposure. But those who believe in the ghost say the photo is genuine proof. Over the years, many visitors and workers at Raynham Hall have reported strange things. Some say they have heard footsteps when no one was there. Others have seen a shadowy figure moving through the rooms. A few have even felt a cold breeze or the sensation of being watched. The ghost is usually seen on the staircase or in the hallway, wearing her brown dress. Some say her face is peaceful, while others describe it as frightening, with hollow eyes and a sad expression. The owners of Raynham Hall have always been private about the ghost stories. They do not encourage ghost hunters or TV shows to investigate, but they also do not deny the legends. The house is still a private home, so not many people can go inside to look for the Brown Lady. But those who have been inside say the place has a strange feeling, as if someone is always watching. Scientists and skeptics have tried to explain the sightings. Some say it could be tricks of light or shadows in the old house. Others think people imagine things because they expect to see a ghost. But those who believe in the Brown Lady say the stories are too many and too detailed to ignore. The photograph, the old records, and the many sightings over the years make it hard to dismiss the legend completely. Whether the Brown Lady is real or not, the story has become a part of England's haunted history. People love ghost stories because they are mysterious and exciting. The tale of the Brown Lady has everything: love, betrayal, tragedy, and the supernatural. It makes us wonder if the spirits of the past really do stay behind, wandering the places they once knew. For now, the mystery of the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall remains unsolved, and her ghost, if she exists, continues to walk the halls of the old house, waiting for someone else to see her. Story number 2. The Bell Witch. The Bell Witch haunting is one of the most famous and well-documented ghost stories in American history. It took place in the early 1800s in Robertson County, Tennessee, where a farmer named John Bell and his family experienced terrifying supernatural events that lasted for years. The story has been passed down through generations, with many eyewitness accounts and even some written records from the time. What makes this case unique is that the spirit, known as the Bell Witch, could speak, interact with people, and even seem to have a personality of its own. Unlike typical ghost stories where spirits just appear or make noises, this one carried on conversations, played tricks, and even knew things about people that no one else could have known. It all began in 1817, when John Bell saw a strange creature in his cornfield. It looked like a dog with the head of a rabbit, but when he tried to shoot it, the animal disappeared. Soon after, the family started hearing knocking sounds on the walls and doors at night. At first, they thought it was just rats or the wind, but the noises grew louder and more disturbing. Then, the children Betsy, Drew, and the others started feeling like something was pulling their hair or pinching them while they slept. Sheets were yanked off their beds, and invisible hands slapped them in the dark. The family was terrified but had no explanation for what was happening. Asterisk, as time passed, the disturbances became more intense. The spirit began speaking, first in whispers, then in a clear voice. It identified itself as Kate, though no one knew why. Some believed it was the ghost of a woman who had once lived on the land, while others thought it was a demon. The witch knew things about the families past and even repeated private conversations no one else could have heard. It would sing hymns, quote Bible verses, and then suddenly switch to cursing and screaming. Sometimes it sounded like an old woman, other times like a young girl, and even imitated animals. Neighbors and visitors came to see the strange happenings, and many left convinced that the haunting was real. One of the most shocking things about the Bell Witch was how it seemed to hate John Bell in particular. It would slap him, choke him, and even make him suffer from seizures. His health began to fail, and no doctor could explain why. The witch claimed it was slowly killing him, and in 1820, John Bell died. After his death, a strange bottle of medicine was found near him, and when the witch was asked about it, it laughed and said it had poisoned him. A drop of the liquid was given to a cat, which immediately died. John Bell's death was the darkest moment of the haunting, and many believed the witch was responsible. The spirit also had a strained relationship with Betsy Bell, John's youngest daughter. At times it tormented her, pulling her hair and scratching her. Other times it acted almost protective, warning her about dangers or even comforting her. Betsy was engaged to a man named Joshua Gardner, but the witch hated him and constantly harassed him until he finally broke off the engagement. Some say the witch did this because it was jealous, while others believe it was trying to save Betsy from an unhappy marriage. The haunting became so famous that even General Andrew Jackson, who later became president, visited the Bell farm to see the witch for himself. According to legend, his wagon suddenly stopped on the way to the house, and his men couldn't move it until someone said, "It must be the Bell Witch." Then a voice laughed and said, "All right, you can go now," and the wagon moved again. When Jackson arrived, he and his men experienced strange noises and unseen hands slapping them. Jackson reportedly said, "I'd rather fight the British again than deal with this witch." After John Bell's death, the witch's activity began to fade. It promised to return in 7 years, and in 1828, it did, but only briefly. It spoke to John Bell Jr., telling him about future events, including the Civil War and other historical moments, before disappearing for good. Some say the witch still lingers in the area, and even today, people claim to hear strange voices or feel unseen presences near the old Bell Farm. Scientists and skeptics have tried to explain the Bell Witch haunting in different ways. Some say it was all a hoax, possibly created by a neighbor who hated John Bell. Others think the family suffered from mass hysteria, where fear and imagination made them believe in something that wasn't real. There are also theories about underground gases causing hallucinations, or even that Betsy Bell herself might have been behind some of the tricks, using ventriloquism to fool her family. But no theory fully explains everything that happened, especially the speaking spirit and the many witnesses who saw and heard things they couldn't explain. The Bell Witch story remains one of the most mysterious hauntings in history. Books, movies, and documentaries have been made about it, and people still visit the area hoping to experience something supernatural. Whether it was a ghost, a demon, or something else, the legend of the Bell Witch continues to fascinate and frighten people even today. It makes us wonder about the thin line between the living and the dead, and whether some spirits really can come back to torment the living. Story number 3. The Tower of London Ghosts. The Tower of London is one of the most haunted places in England, with ghost stories going back nearly 1,000 years. This ancient castle by the River Thames has been a royal palace, a prison, and a place of execution. Many people were killed here in brutal ways, and some say their spirits never left. Visitors, guards, and even kings have reported seeing ghosts walking the towers and corridors at night. The most famous ghosts include Anne Boleyn, Lady Jane Grey, and the 2 young princes who disappeared. These stories are so well known that the tower is sometimes called the most haunted building in Britain. One of the most often seen ghosts is Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII. She was executed in 1536 because the king wanted to marry someone else. Anne was beheaded with a sword on Tower Green, and her ghost has been seen many times since then. Guards have reported seeing a woman in an old-fashioned dress walking near the chapel where she is buried. Some say she carries her head under her arm. One night in 1864, a soldier saw a white figure and tried to stab it with his bayonet. When the figure didn't disappear, he fainted. Other guards have heard strange noises coming from the chapel at night when no one was inside. Anne's ghost has been seen so many times that people believe she can't rest because of how unfairly she was treated. Another famous ghost is Lady Jane Grey, known as the 9 Days Queen. She was only 16 years old when she was put on the throne, and then quickly removed. She was kept prisoner in the Tower, and later beheaded in 1554. People have seen her pale, sad ghost near the place where she was executed. One night in 1957, 2 guards saw a shadowy figure on the roof of the Salt Tower. When they went to look, there was no one there. Others have reported seeing a young girl in an old-fashioned dress walking near the execution site, looking lost and frightened. Like in Boleyn, Lady Jane's ghost seems to relive her tragic death over and over again. Perhaps the saddest ghosts in the tower are the 2 young princes, Edward V and his brother Richard. In 1483, the 2 boys were sent to the tower by their uncle Richard III and were never seen again. Many believe their uncle had them killed so he could become king. In 1674, workers found 2 small skeletons in a box under a staircase in the tower, and people think these were the princes. Since then, visitors have reported seeing 2 small boys in old-fashioned nightshirts holding hands and crying. They appear in the room where they were last seen alive, looking scared and confused. Some people have heard children sobbing at night when no children were in the tower. The poor boys seem to be stuck in the place where they died so long ago. Other ghosts in the tower include the spirit of Margaret Pole, an old woman who was executed in a very brutal way. In 1541, the executioner had to chase her around and hack at her with his axe because she wouldn't stay still. Her ghost has been seen reenacting this horrible death. There's also the ghost of a huge bear that once lived in the tower when it had a zoo. In 1815, a guard saw what he thought was a bear coming at him and actually died of fright. Some people have smelled strange animal smells in parts of the tower where animals were once kept. Another famous ghost is that of Sir Walter Raleigh, who was imprisoned in the tower for years. People have seen his well-dressed ghost walking peacefully through the halls where he once walked as a prisoner. The guards at the tower, called beefeaters, take these ghost stories seriously. Many of them have seen or heard things they can't explain. One guard reported seeing a strange figure in a long black robe walking toward him one night. When he called out, the figure disappeared into a wall. Other guards have heard footsteps following them when no one was there. Some refuse to go certain places in the tower at night because they're too scared. The tower has even been investigated by ghost experts with special equipment, and some say they've recorded strange voices and cold spots where ghosts might be. Even kings have seen ghosts in the tower. King Henry VIII reportedly saw the ghost of his dead wife Jane Seymour walking through a hallway wearing white. Another time, a guard saw the ghost of King Henry VI, who was murdered in the tower in 1471. The ghost was seen praying near the spot where he died before fading away. These royal ghosts suggest that even kings and queens can't escape the tower's haunted past. Why is the tower so haunted? Experts say it's because so many people died there in violent ways. For over 500 years, the tower was used as a prison where people were tortured and killed. The stones of the buildings seem to hold on to these sad memories. Some scientists say ghost sightings could be caused by the mind playing tricks in old buildings, or by strange air currents and sounds. But many people who have visited the tower believe something more supernatural is happening. The sheer number of sightings over so many years makes it hard to dismiss all the stories as imagination. Today, the Tower of London is a popular tourist attraction. Visitors can take ghost tours at night and hear all the scary stories. Some people report feeling suddenly cold in certain areas, or like someone is watching them. Others have taken photos showing strange misty shapes that weren't there when the picture was taken. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the tower has a creepy feeling, especially at night when the crowds are gone. The long history of suffering and death seems to linger in the air. The ghost stories of the Tower of London remind us of England's violent past. They show how people who died unfairly might not rest peacefully. These stories have been told for generations because they touch something deep in us: the fear of death, the desire for justice, and the mystery of what happens after we die. The tower's ghosts may just be stories, but so many people have seen similar things over hundreds of years that it makes you wonder. Maybe some spirits really do stay behind in places where terrible things happen to them. The tower's ghosts continue to fascinate people today, just as they have for centuries. They are a living, or perhaps not so living, part of England's history. Story. Number 4. The Amityville Horror. Amityville Horror is one of the most famous and controversial ghost stories in modern American history. It began in 1974 when a terrible crime took place in a large Dutch colonial house at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. Ronald DeFeo Jr., a 23-year-old man from the family living there, shot and killed his parents and 4 younger siblings. While they slept at his trial, DeFeo claimed voices in the house made him do it, but he was found guilty and sent to prison. The house stood empty for 13 months until George and Kathy Lutz moved in with Kathy's 3 children from a previous marriage in December 1975. What happened next would become the subject of books, movies, and endless debates about whether ghosts and demons are real. The Lutzes said they only lasted 28 days in the house before running away in terror. They claimed that from their very first day, strange things happened. Doors would slam by themselves, cold spots appeared in rooms, and they heard strange marching band music playing when no radio was on. George said he woke up every morning at exactly 3:15 a.m., the same time the DeFeo murders had happened, and couldn't get back to sleep. Kathy reported seeing a dark figure with glowing red eyes staring at her from the hallway. Their 5-year-old daughter Missy talked about playing with an imaginary friend named Jody, who took the form of a demonic pig-like creature. The family's dog refused to go into certain rooms and would growl at nothing. One of the scariest things that Lucci's described was the green slime that oozed from walls and ceilings. They said it smelled terrible and kept coming back no matter how many times they cleaned it. In the basement, they found a small hidden room painted blood red that became known as the Red Room. This was where the worst activities seemed to center. George claimed something in the house was changing him, making him angry and violent in ways he'd never been before. He stopped bathing, couldn't stay warm even by the fire, and started looking like he was aging rapidly. The family said they all became sick and exhausted during their short time in the house. After less than a month, the Lutzes packed some clothes and left in the middle of a freezing winter night, leaving nearly all their belongings behind. They went to stay with relatives, and later contacted a priest to bless the house. The Lutzes said the priest heard a deep male voice tell him to get out, and was sprayed with holy water that came from nowhere. He reportedly told them the house had a powerful demonic presence. News of their experiences spread quickly, and soon paranormal investigators and reporters were looking into the story. In 1977, Jay Anson wrote the book The Amityville Horror, based on the Lutzes' account, which became a bestseller and was made into a popular movie in 1979. However, not everyone believed the Lutzes' story. Skeptics pointed out that George and Kathy had money problems and may have made up the haunting to get attention. A lawyer who worked with them later said they admitted much of the story was exaggerated. The priest who blessed the house said the Lutzes' version of events was largely untrue. Investigators found no proof of the green slime or the Red Room. Some neighbors said they never noticed anything strange about the house. The Lutzes stuck to their story until they died, but over time many details were questioned. Even some paranormal researchers who originally believed the story later changed their minds. The house itself has had several owners since the Lutzes, and none have reported anything like what the Lutzes described. Current residents say it's just a normal house, though they still get curious visitors taking pictures outside. The real horror may have been the terrible murders that happened there, not any ghosts. Some psychologists suggest the Lutzes may have experienced a kind of mass hysteria where people convince themselves something supernatural is happening because of the house's dark history. The power of suggestion can make people interpret normal sounds and events as something ghostly when they know a place is supposed to be haunted. Despite the doubts, the Amityville Horror remains popular in American culture. There have been over 20 movies based on or inspired by the story, along with TV shows, documentaries, and even musicals. Each new version adds more dramatic scares, making it hard to separate fact from fiction. The original book and movie mix real elements like the DeFeo murders with clearly made-up parts like the demon pig. This blending of truth and imagination is part of what keeps people fascinated decades later. The story taps into common fears about houses where terrible crimes occurred. Could evil linger in the walls? Could a place itself be cursed? Scientists explain that many haunting experiences have natural causes. Old houses make strange noises as materials expand and contract. High electromagnetic fields from wiring can make people feel watched or create hallucinations. Carbon monoxide poisoning can cause visions and sickness like the Lutzes described. Sleep paralysis could explain nighttime visitations. The mind is powerful and can create ghostly experiences, especially when people are under stress or expecting something supernatural to happen. In the Amityville case, knowing about the murders could have put the family in a state of fear where every creak seemed sinister. What makes the Amityville story different from other hauntings is how it became a media phenomenon. Unlike older ghost stories passed down through generations, this one spread quickly through books, newspapers, and movies. It came at a time when people were very interested in the supernatural, but before modern ghost hunting shows taught everyone how hauntings should look. The timing was perfect for creating a legend that would last. Even today, people debate what really happened in that house. Was it a true haunting? A hoax? A mix of real events and imagination? The truth may never be fully known, but the story continues to scare and fascinate new generations. It serves as both a cautionary tale about buying houses with dark histories and a reflection of how people deal with real-life horrors through ghost stories. Whether fact or fiction, the Amityville Horror remains one of America's most enduring paranormal tales. That's story number 5, the Enfield Poltergeist. The Enfield Poltergeist is one of the most famous and well-documented ghost stories from England. Happened in a normal council house in Enfield, North London. between 1977 and 1979. The story involves a single mother named Peggy Hodgson and her 4 children, Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy, who claimed their home was taken over by violent, supernatural forces. What makes this case special is that it was investigated by respected paranormal researchers, photographed by newspapers, and witnessed by many people, including police officers. While some believe it was a real haunting, others think it might have been a clever hoax by the children. It all started in August 1977 when Peggy and her children began hearing strange knocking sounds at night. At first they thought it might be mice in the walls or the house settling, but soon the noises became louder and more frequent. Furniture started moving by itself, chairs slid across the floor, beds shook violently, and toys flew off shelves. The family reported seeing objects float in midair before crashing to the ground. The children's beds would shake so hard they had to sleep together in their mother's room for safety. The activity seemed to focus mostly around 11-year-old Janet and her 13-year-old sister Margaret. By September, things had gotten much worse. The knocking turned into loud bangs that shook the whole house. Neighbors could hear the noises from outside. One night, a chest of drawers moved by itself and blocked the door, trapping Janet inside her room until her mother could push it open. The family called the police, thinking someone had broken in. When police arrived, they saw a chair slide across the floor with no one touching it. One officer later wrote in his report that he saw the chair move about 4 feet on its own. This police report is one reason. Many people believe something truly strange was happening in the house. The story attracted the attention of the Daily Mirror newspaper, who sent reporter Doug Bounds to investigate. He witnessed many strange events, including Lego bricks flying through the air and hitting him. The newspaper then contacted the Society for Psychical Research, an organization that studies paranormal events. They sent Morris, Grass, and Guy Lyon Playfair, 2 experienced investigators who had spent over a year studying the case. They recorded hundreds of hours of audio, took many photographs, and kept detailed notes of everything that happened. Some of the most disturbing events involved Janet. She would sometimes be thrown from her bed by invisible forces. The investigators saw her levitate several times. Once, she was seen floating above her bed before being dropped onto the floor. Objects would fly toward her, and she had bruises from being hit by things no one could see. The poltergeist also began speaking through Janet in a deep, growling voice that didn't sound like her at all. This voice claimed to be the spirit of an old man who had died in the house. It would swear, make threats, and sometimes answer questions about the family's private life that Janet couldn't have known. The investigators tried many ways to prove whether the haunting was real or fake. They set up cameras, brought in scientists, and even had Janet stay in a special hospital for tests. Some of the events were definitely faked. Janet was caught bending spoons herself, and once threw a chair when she thought no one was looking, but many other incidents had no obvious explanation. Furniture moved when Janet was being held down by investigators. The strange voice spoke when Janet's mouth was visibly closed. Cold spots appeared in rooms where the temperature suddenly dropped, for no reason. Neighbors had mixed reactions. Some fully believed the family was experiencing something supernatural. Others thought the children were making it up for attention. The haunting became famous across England, with TV crews and reporters visiting the house. This attention may have encouraged the children to exaggerate some events. At the same time, the constant watching made it hard to fake everything that happened over such a long period. The family had no history of lying or seeking fame before these events began. Scientists, who studied the case, have different theories. Some believe it was a true poltergeist case, a type of haunting that focuses around a living person, usually a teenager going through puberty. Others think that children, especially Janet, were unconsciously causing the events through psychokinesis, the ability to move objects with the mind, which some believe can happen during times of stress. Skeptics argue it was all clever trickery by the children, possibly encouraged by the attention they received. The truth probably lies somewhere in between, some real unexplained events, mixed with some exaggeration and tricks. The haunting gradually faded away by 1979. Janet later admitted that she had faked some things, but insisted that most of it was real. As an adult, she said the experience had been terrifying, and she wouldn't wish it on anyone. The other children gave similar accounts that while they might have played along sometimes out of fear or excitement, something truly strange did happen. In that house, Peggy Hodgson always maintained that the haunting was real and that it destroyed their family life for those 2 years. Today, the Enfield poltergeist remains one of the most debated paranormal cases. It inspired books, TV shows, and even a Hollywood movie called The Conjuring 2. What makes it important is the amount of evidence collected: audio recordings, photographs, and many witness statements. While we may never know exactly what happened in that house, the case shows how, even in modern times, with cameras and scientists involved, ghost stories can remain mysterious. Whether it was real supernatural activity, psychological phenomena, or just kids playing tricks, the Enfield poltergeist continues to fascinate people who wonder about life after death and the possibility that spirits can interact with our world.